There's a couple in your neighborhood right now doing everything right. Hazel, 34, makes $82,000 in marketing. Nico, 36, makes $90,000 in IT. Combined, they're pulling $172,000 a year, which puts them in the top 25% of American households. And a smart mirror gym in the garage they use twice. And every month, when the bills clear, they look at each other with that specific quiet panic of people who genuinely don't understand how they're still this broke. Meanwhile, in 1973, a guy named Tom worked one job, supported a wife and two kids, owned a house, and had more spending money at the end of the month than Nico and Hazel do today. My name is Nick. This isn't a story about people earning more. It's a story about an entire generation getting tricked into bidding against themselves and losing. Hit subscribe because once you see how this works, you can't unsee it. Let me tell you about two families. The first is Tom and Susan, 1973. Tom works one job. Let's say he's a mid-level guy at an insurance company and makes the median male salary around $78,400 in today's dollars. Susan stays home with their two kids. Their mortgage is $10,700 a year. Health insurance about $2,100. They have one car. Total fixed costs around $42,000 a year. After taxes and fixed costs, they have about $36,400 left to spend on whatever they want. Vacations, restaurants, savings, the new TV. The second family is Justin and Kimberly, early 2000s. Both work. Combined income, about $67,800. That's 75% more than Tom and Susan, adjusted for inflation. Sounds great, right? Except their mortgage is $8,978 a year, up 76%. Health insurance, $1,650, up 74%. They need two cars to commute, that's another $8,000. Daycare for the 3-year-old, $5,320. After school care for the older kid, $4,350. And because that second income stacks on top of the first, they're now in a 33% federal bracket instead of Tom and Susan's 24%. Total fixed costs, $50,755. Justin and Kimberly earn way more than Tom and Susan. They also have $800 less to spend at the end of the year. They are, on paper, wealthier. In their actual lives, they are poorer. You read that right. Two paychecks, a 75% income jump, less spending money than a guy in 1973 who fixed his own carburetor on weekends. This isn't my opinion. This is from a 2003 book called The Two-Income Trap, written by a Harvard bankruptcy law professor named Elizabeth Warren. Yes, that Elizabeth Warren, way before the senator stuff, and her daughter Amelia Tyagi. They studied over 2,000 bankrupt families. They ran the budgets, and the numbers they found were, frankly, deranged. Now, you might be thinking, okay, well, that's because people today have iPhones and avocado toast and Marie Kondoed their houses. And I'd love to tell you that's true because at least then the solution would be easy, but the data says the opposite. Adjusted for inflation, families today spend less on clothing, less on appliances, less on food, and less per car than families did 50 years ago. The squeeze didn't come from frivolous spending. It came from somewhere else entirely, and it's currently happening to Nico and Hazel in real time. The biggest piece of this trap is housing. In 1970, the median home cost about 2.4 times the median family income. In 2026, it's about 6.1 times. In San Jose, it's 12.5. That's not a housing market, that's a fever dream. But here's the part nobody on the news will explain to you because it requires admitting something uncomfortable. The reason houses got that expensive isn't just supply, isn't just interest rates, isn't just boomers refusing to die in their split levels. The reason houses got that expensive is that banks changed who they were lending to. Picture this. It's 1995. A house goes up for sale on a nice cul-de-sac. Tom shows up to bid. Well, Tom's son shows up, same vibe. He's making one income. The bank looks at his paycheck and says, you can borrow up to 4 times your salary and your housing payment can exceed 25% of that paycheck. So your ceiling is X. Tom's son writes down a number. Then Justin and Kimberly pull up in their two cars. The bank looks at their combined paycheck and says, you can borrow against both incomes at 28% to 36% of combined pay, and you can put down 3% instead of 20%. Their ceiling is double Tom's son's number. The seller looks at both offers and picks Justin and Kimberly, obviously. The house sells for the dual income number. Now repeat that auction in every neighborhood in America for 30 years. If every family in the bidding pool can suddenly borrow twice as much, what happens to the price of houses? They go up. They go up until both incomes are required to win the auction. Once that's the new normal, single income families just can't compete ever again. The bank standing next to them is approving their competitor for double what they brought. The second paycheck didn't make families richer, it made the houses more expensive. Two-income households accidentally bid each other into a corner. That's not a market. That's an arms race in mortgage paper, and both armies lost. And right now, in 2026, that's the exact corner Nico and Hazel are sitting in. Okay, but housing is just one part of it. Let's talk about why families chose those expensive houses in the first place, because this one is honestly the most depressing chapter of the whole story. Picture two houses, same square footage, same year built, same number of bedrooms. One is in a good school district, the other is in an okay school district. Identical houses, different price tags. How different? According to a Brookings study covering the 100 largest U.S. metros, homes in the neighborhoods of high-scoring schools cost on average $205,000 more than homes near low-scoring schools. Realtor.com pegs the premium at 49% above the national median. Redfin calls it $50 extra per square foot. For a 2,000 square foot house, that's roughly a $100,000 surcharge for the privilege of sending your kid to a public school that's slightly above the local average. A $100,000 surcharge for a free school. And here's where the bidding war eats itself. If every dual income family in your metro is fighting for the same school district, the only way to win is to put more of your income into the mortgage, which means you need the second paycheck to make the payment, which means the second parent has to work, which means daycare costs go up, which means you need even more income, which means you bid even harder next time. The school district was supposed to be the reward for working two jobs. It became the reason you can't stop. And the cruelest joke, it's a zero-sum game. The good district only stays good relative to the bad one. If everyone moves in, the premium resets at a higher price. You're paying $100,000 extra to stand in the same line you were already standing in. Now let's talk about the expense that literally did not exist as a household line item for most of human civilization: childcare. In 1973, when Susan stayed home with the kids, the cost of childcare was zero. Not low, zero. It didn't appear on the family budget because the person providing it was already there. Today, the national average for childcare is $13,128 per year per child. For infant center-based care, it's over $19,000. In Washington, D.C., it's $24,243. In 28 U.S. states, the annual cost of infant childcare is now higher than in-state public university tuition. Let me say that out loud. It costs more to send a 1-year-old to daycare than to send an 18-year-old to college in most of the country. The Federal Department of Health and Human Services says childcare is affordable if it's 7% of your household income or less. Not a single state in the country meets that benchmark for center-based infant care. 0 states, not one. And here's a piece of math nobody tells you about, which is genuinely going to ruin your day. When that second parent goes back to work, their entire paycheck gets stacked on top of the first one for tax purposes. So that $50,000 second income isn't getting taxed at the low brackets the first $50,000 enjoys. It's getting taxed at the top of the pile. Sometimes 30%, 35%, even 40% effective when you add federal, state, and payroll. And it can push the family out of certain credits and subsidies that single-income households at the same gross income would still qualify for. The child care credit phases down, The earned income credit disappears. Sometimes ACA subsidies vanish. You can earn more on paper and take home less in cash. So when the second parent goes back to work to bring home that second paycheck, the first thing they do is hand a huge chunk to a daycare and then hand another huge chunk to the IRS. If they have 2 kids under 5, they might be handing over $26,000 to $40,000 a year in childcare alone just to be allowed to work. That's before taxes, that's before the second car, that's before the work wardrobe and the takeout dinners because nobody had time to cook. And here's the trap inside the trap. You can't not pay it because if you quit your job, you can't afford the mortgage you signed when you had 2 incomes. So you keep working to pay for the childcare that exists because you keep working. It's a perfect financial Mobius strip. Okay, deep breath. We've talked about the bidding war. Now let's talk about what families lost in the trade, because this is the part of the 2-income trap that doesn't get nearly enough attention. In 1970, a typical middle-class family had something that doesn't show up on any economic spreadsheet. They had a non-working adult in the prime of their working life sitting at home. We usually call this person a stay-at-home mom. But that's not actually what she was, financially speaking. She was an unemployment insurance policy with 0 premiums, infinite paid time off, and a customer service line that always picked up. If dad got laid off, mom could go get a job. If dad got sick, mom could pick up part-time work. If interest rates spiked, or the car broke down, or the roof leaked, mom was the variable that could change. The family had a backup engine. Today, when both parents work full-time, that backup engine is gone. It's already running. There is no, well, the other one can step in. The other one is in. Both incomes are already committed to fixed costs. There's no reserve. So if dad gets laid off in 1973, the family takes a hit and adapts. If Nico gets laid off in 2026, the mortgage doesn't get paid next month. Because the mortgage was sized for 2 incomes, and now they only have 1. Think about that for a second. Hazel and Nico have twice the chances of someone losing a job, getting sick, or hitting a crisis because there are 2 of them in the workforce, not 1. And when that crisis comes, they have less ability to absorb it than Tom did 50 years ago. Twice the risk, 0 backup. That's the trade. This isn't just theory. In 2019, 2 economists named Jonathan Fisher and Nathaniel Johnson published a working paper with the U.S. Census Bureau. They linked actual bankruptcy court records to census data and ran the regression. Their conclusion was direct. 2-earner married couples are about 10% more likely to file for bankruptcy 3 to 5 years later than otherwise similar married households. Same income, same education, same demographics, but the 2-earner couples had spent both paychecks on housing, so when a shock hit, they had nowhere to go. The single-income family of 1970 had margin. The dual-income family of 2026 has none. That's not a personal finance failure. That's the trap snapping shut. It's the 28th of the month. Nico is sitting at the kitchen table looking at the bank account on his phone. The mortgage cleared. That was $3,600. Daycare, $2,600. 2 car payments, $1,450 between them. Groceries this month, about $1,200. Insurance, $950. Gas. Internet. The kid's activities, the dentist, he scrolls. There's $43 left in checking. Payday is Friday. When your gross income is $172,000, your brain thinks you're rich. Your tax return says you're rich. Your LinkedIn profile says you're rich. The bank that approved your $550,000 mortgage definitely said you're rich. But your bank account on the 28th says something different, and you are far from alone. According to the Bank of America Institute, 24% of U.S. households are living paycheck to paycheck. Among lower income households, it's 29%. These are not people who failed at money. These are people who got priced in. Now, you might be thinking, Nick, you're describing my actual life right now, and I would like to stop being personally attacked. I get it. But here's the thing. You're not the problem. The math is the problem. You're earning at 6-figure levels and spending at 6-figure levels, and the spending isn't even your choice. It's the bid you have to make to participate. Housing, healthcare, childcare, education. The 4 things you literally cannot opt out of as a middle-class family with kids. Those four categories ate the entire second paycheck, and the rest of the economy is happy to let you blame yourself, by the way. Because if you blame yourself, you'll just work harder. And working harder is how the trap stays sprung. Let me show you exactly what I mean. Hazel brings home $82,000 gross. Sounds great, right? But let's actually follow that money. Taxes first, stacked on top of Nico's $90,000, she's getting hit at 30% to 35% effective. Her $82,000 just became roughly $54,000. Then daycare for their youngest, $13,000. Now she's at $28,000. Add the second car she needs to commute. Payment, insurance, gas, maintenance, call it $8,000. Now she's at $20,000. Subtract the work clothes, the dry cleaning, the lunches out, the takeout on the nights nobody had time to cook, and the coffee she grabs on the way to a job she didn't even want to drive to. The actual cash from Hazel's $82,000 that hits the family bank account. Under $12,000 a year, maybe less. For a woman working 40 hours a week, missing dinners, sitting in traffic, the household is netting about $8 an hour for her trouble. That's not laziness. That's not bad budgeting. That's the math of being a working parent in a system that quietly priced in your second paycheck before you ever earned it. Let me tell you about another couple. We'll call them Ezra and Lily. Combined income, $170,000. Basically the same as Nico and Hazel, same metro area, same career trajectories, same number of kids. But Ezra and Lily did something weird 10 years ago. When they were house hunting, they looked at the houses the bank was offering to approve them for, $650,000, $700,000, and said no. They bought a $380,000 house in a neighborhood with a good but not elite school district. Their friends thought they were nuts. Their in-laws asked when they were going to buy something nice. Their mortgage takes 22% of just Ezra's income. So every month, Lily's entire paycheck, minus a small lifestyle buffer, goes into index funds. Has for 10 years. Today, they have just over $550,000 invested. Their house is paid down to under $240,000. And here's the part you really need to hear. Last year, Lily quit a job that was destroying her, took 6 months off, and then started consulting from home at half the income. They didn't lose the house. They didn't go into debt. They didn't even have to discuss it that hard because they built their fixed costs around one income. This is the move. Build your entire financial life as if you only had one income. I don't mean quit your job. I don't mean send anyone home. I mean structure your fixed costs, the mortgage, the car payments, the insurance, the daycare, to fit comfortably inside one paycheck. Ideally the larger one. The second paycheck becomes your wealth engine. The benchmark, if you want a hard number, is this. Total monthly housing costs no more than 28% of one income, not combined income. Total debt service no more than 36% of one income. If you can't make the math work, the house is too expensive for your actual risk profile. Doesn't matter what the bank approved you for. The bank is not the one filing the bankruptcy paperwork 3 years from now. I know this sounds brutal. I know it means living in a smaller house in a less prestigious zip code than your salary qualifies you for. I know your in-laws will have opinions, but Ezra and Lily have what Nico and Hazel don't have and what nobody at the office ever talks about. They have a choice. Let me leave you with the cleanest way to think about this. The two-income trap is not really about income. It's about flexibility. A 1970s single-income family had less money but more margin. Less stuff but more reserves. A smaller house but the option to keep it if dad lost his job. That margin, that reserve, that option, that's what wealth actually is. It's not the salary, it's not the square footage, it's the ability to absorb a shock without losing everything. Two incomes were supposed to give you double the security. Instead, they gave you double the expectations, double the fixed costs, and zero backup plan. You didn't get rich, you got conscripted. So go back to Nico and Hazel for a second. Top 25% of households, 2 careers, 2 cars, a smart mirror gym, and a checking account that hits $43 every month on the 28th. They look rich on every form they fill out, and inside their own house on a quiet Tuesday night, they don't feel rich at all. Because they aren't. They're conscripted soldiers in a bidding war they never agreed to fight. The way out is not earning more. They've already tried that. They earn $172,000 and they're still drowning. The way out is refusing to let the bid set the size of their life, living like they have one paycheck, investing the other, building the margin back the slow, unsexy way the bidding war is designed to make them too tired to attempt. Will it feel like sacrifice? Yeah. They'll watch other dual income families move into bigger houses while they stay in theirs. They'll keep driving the 2018. They'll feel like they're falling behind in a race they never agreed to enter. But 5 years from now, when the layoffs hit, when the medical bill arrives, when one of them wants to start a business or take care of a parent or just leave a job that's destroying them, they'll have options. The other families won't. That's the actual definition of being middle class, not the income bracket, the optionality. So tonight, before you go to sleep, ask yourself one question. If one of these two paychecks disappeared tomorrow, what would actually happen? Would you adapt, or would the trap snap shut? Because the answer to that question is the only one that matters. If this was the financial reframe nobody else gave you, do me a favor and let the next person find it too. Subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.